Hey everybody, it's Rob. We're back doing another Hack the Box walkthrough. This time we're doing a machine called Nibbles, and it is a Linux machine and it is rated as easy, and I thought it was pretty easy. Um, so without further ado, you can see that I am connected to Hack the Box's VPN, and I do have Nibbles spun up, and here's the IP address. So like we always do, we ran an Mmap scan. Service version detection T4 aggressive on most common ports, and only two things came back, 22 and 80. 80 is running an Apache server. So with those results, the first thing that we did was we went to the web page. Now, one thing habit you should always get into when you see pages like this is to look at the source. This is kind of a weird, you know, hello world web page out there. I would think that there's probably more to it. So, like I said, you should always inspect the source of the page. And lo and behold, down here at the bottom, it says Nibbleblog directory, nothing interesting here. Wink, wink. Okay. So that means to me that we need to append Nibbleblog onto the IP address and see what pops up. And we get a Nibbleblog, surprisingly enough. So this isn't really too useful to us either. There's not even like a version number or anything here. So what I did was I did some go busting. And what we're going to do is we're going to go bust. I think first we're going to go bust on the original IP address just to see if there's anything hidden there. And then when that's done, we'll run GoBuster on, oh, wrong IP address. I constantly do this. I apologize. After we're done running it on the base URL, I don't think Nibbleblog is going to be one that's going to pop up because I don't think it's in the word list, but we'll see. So we'll run it on the base web page first and see what happens. Okay, we got the index page. Getting towards the end. Oh, we got a couple of things here. Server status, which kind of always shows up 403. And that's it. So really nothing there. So then now the next logical step is to run it on Nibbleblog. So we'll just append Nibbleblog and we'll run it on that. All right, right off the bat, we have an admin, looks like an admin redirection. It's probably a file listing. There's an admin PHP page, which I'm going to venture a guess is the login page for the administrator. There's a content, and then we have languages. And I don't think too much else is going to pop up. Plugins, typical for blog, README. Themes. All right. So we have a couple of things we can look at here. Let's look at admin and content, and then we'll probably go to the admin PHP. So we'll come up here, we'll type content, and it's a directory listable. Ah, I see some interesting stuff. Let's see. Anything under users? Admin. So we have a username of admin. That is useful. I'm going to be honest with you. I looked through the most everything else, and there wasn't anything useful. But this was important because I didn't know what the administrator was, the administrator account was. It could have been anything, but now at least we know there's an admin user. So let's go see what's under that admin directory. Ajax, categories, uploader, settings. I think I looked at all of this and there wasn't a whole lot that was useful. Posts, get a bunch of errors. I can tell you this. There is some kind of security on this website where it blacklists your IP address for a short time. Let's see if I can find it. It might be user, send forgot bit, settings. Dashboard. It might be under the content. Let's see, shadow, tags, keys, comments, plugins, my pages, my image, config. Admin at Nibbles, so we definitely know there's an admin. I saw this security bit. Can't remember where I saw it. Public. It's definitely not under public. It's got to be under private. Posts, shadow, categories. Not 100% sure. I can't quite remember, but I could have swore I saw like a security bit. And what happens is if you fail logging in a couple of times, it will blacklist your IP. I think you got to wait a few minutes for it to unblacklist your IP. Ajax boot controllers, JS kernel, defense.io, PHP, plugin class helpers, DB API. Yeah, I can't remember where I saw it. Shadow plugins, applications pages. Regardless, just know that when you try to guess passwords, you could get locked out temporarily. You just have to wait a few minutes and then it will allow your IP address to get back on. So let's get back to the admin PHP. The blog is called Nibbles, and I'm going to be honest with you, I just guessed a bunch of passwords and eventually I typed in admin and Nibbles and it let me in. So that's how I got in. I just manually guessed a bunch of passwords. I'd say less than 10. And Nibbles is actually the password. So this admin is very lazy. He, he had his password the name of his blog. So I now have access to things like finding out what version of Nibble blog this is, 403 Coffee. So I did a little research on exploits that were available for Nibbleblog and came up with this one. This is Metasploit, but there's also, so you could absolutely use the Metasploit framework to exploit this box, but I didn't want to do Metasploit this time. I wanted to do a manual exploit. So searching for this CVE right here, 2015-6967, I found this. And this is in Dixonym. This is his GitHub. And I have to say this exploit worked fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to download this code and then I'll show you and walk you through it. So we'll download that exploit. All right. And we'll open up our folder here. And we'll go back, and I'm going to create a new folder called Nibbles. All right, I'm going to go into downloads. I'm going to drop that into Kali and then drop it into Nibbles. Okay, so now we have the exploit. If you look at the exploit and how it's used, you need a payload. And they give you an example here of shell.php. So my assumption is that we're going to upload a reverse shell PHP to the website, to the blog. So we're going to need a payload. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into my tools, shells. We're going to copy Pentest Monkeys, php-reverse-shell, go back into Nibbles. We're going to paste it, and then we're going to edit that. So if you've used this before, which I'm sure you probably have, there's only two things you have to worry about, the port and the IP address. So obviously I need to put my correct IP address in here, which is 10.10.14.187. So now that we have that all set, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, we're good to go. We're going to save this, and we're going to X out of here. Now we're going to look at this code. So we'll open this with mousepad. Import requests, so that you know what that means, Python virtual environment, okay? And it looks like the arguments are the URL, the username and password, and the payload. And that's why it was so important for us to figure out how to log into this Nibbleblog using admin Nibbles, because all of the exploits that I found were authenticated, meaning you have to have credentials, okay? So what you need to do at this point is pretty simple. We just get out of here. We open a terminal here. We need to create a Python virtual environment, which obviously you know we have done many times. So it's Python, the module venv, and then .vanv is the name of our environment. That's what it's traditionally named. So we're going to hit enter. All right, and then we know for a fact that we have to install requests. So let's just do that. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to format the exploit with the arguments that we want to use in order to be able to own this machine. So I'm just going to copy this over because it's a pretty long command, and I'll explain it once it's there. All right, so we're running the exploit in our Python virtual environment, and actually this probably is not going to work. You really should always reference the exploit with a / to let the program know that it's in the current directory. The URL is the Nibbleblog, so we want to make sure that we append that Nibbleblog to the end of the IP address. The username, as we said, is admin. The password is Nibbles, and the payload is the php-reverse-shell.php. We just edited it. It has to be in the same directory as the exploit that you're running. All right, now before we do anything else, we have to do a netcat listener on 1, 2, 3, 4, and we come back and we hit enter. Okay. Login successful, upload likely successful. So let's take a look and see if we have a shell. And we do. So what we're going to do is we're going to stabilize this shell a bit with the Python statement. If you don't do this or you have this in your notes, I would make sure that you have that so that you can always just copy it and paste it right in there and get yourself a shell. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an ls, see where we are. And we are at the root of the file system. So let's go cd home ls, and there's only Nibbler on here. So we're going to do cd Nibbler. All right, we're going to do an ls, and it looks like there's a personal.zip and a user.txt. So we'll cat the user.txt, and there's 50% of what we're looking for. Okay, we have the user flag. Now, I have no idea what that personal zip is. but I'm going to do a little bit of my enumeration Linux style, which is going to be, first thing we type is history. And on these machines, you can see basically it just has the history of what I just did. You know, there could be history on a legitimate target that is actually valuable, but for the sake of these machines that are constantly being reset, most of the time history is going to be useful. Not useful, but I always check it anyway. The next thing, you know, we always check is sudo-l. And it looks like we hit pay dirt. So it looks like Nibbler can run home Nibbler personal stuff monitor.shell with no password. So if we do an ls, we can see that personal is now a zip file. It is not it is not a directory. So first thing that we need to do is we need to unzip that. I think we could just do unzip personal.zip. Okay, we got it. So now we'll do an ls, and now we have the personal folder. So we'll go in there and we'll do personal, and we'll do an ls, and we just have stuff. So we'll do cd stuff, ls, and there's this monitor.shell in there. Now, whatever this script is doing, ultimately we don't really care. It looks like it's doing all kinds of like checks and stuff on the machine and all that. I mean, it's irrelevant because honestly, we're not actually going to use this script per se. The way that I'm going to take advantage of this is the fact that Nibbler can run something called monitor.shell, right? It doesn't have to be that monitor.shell. So the first thing that I thought to do was to copy over bin dash to home Nibbler personal stuff bash. All right, so now we should have bash in there. All right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to check and make sure everything's executable here. Yes, bash is executable. So what I chose to do was to just move monitor.shell to monitor.old, and then move bash to monitor.shell. Essentially all we're doing is renaming the files, okay? So now we have this, we have monitor.old and monitor.shell in there, which is actually the bash binary, okay? Now, you might be saying to yourself, oh, that's great. Now I can just run sudo monitor.shell and get root. Well, I'll show you what happens when you do that. It asks for a password, okay? So the problem here is this. As soon as I exit out of these password attempts, I'll show you what the problem is. If we do sudo-l, Nibbler can run a very specific version of monitor.shell. You cannot use it won't use the relative path, okay? You have to use the literal path when you run this. So the only way that this is going to work is if you actually run that, okay? So we copy the selection and we do sudo, and now we paste this in here, and now we run it. And now we have a root shell. So let me just explain that again. You can't just run monitor.shell because it's not allowing you to run any monitor.shell. It's allowing you to run monitor.shell in that specific directory, which is why we copied bash over to that directory, renamed it monitor.shell, and then when you actually use sudo, you have to use the whole literal path that is supplied in the sudoers file, okay? Or the file that is configured to allow that command to run with no password. It's usually a separate file. So I hope you understand that. You cannot just run the command. You have to run it with the literal path, okay? Hopefully that's clear. So now we can do cd root, and we can do cat root.txt. And there's the flag. So overall, I thought this was a pretty easy machine. So what we did was we ran an mmap scan. We found 80 was available. We checked the website. There was a dopey Hello World page. We looked at the source, which gave us an indication that there was a directory called Nibbleblog. When we went to Nibbleblog, it presented us with a version of Nibbleblog of which we didn't know. So did some go busting, found some directories, poked around, found that there was definitely an admin user. And then by chance, I just, tried some different passwords. And, I tried admin password, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. I tried all the easy passwords. And then I thought to myself, the name of the box is Nibbles and the name of the blog is Nibbles. So I tried admin Nibbles and it let me in. So once we were in, we were able to ascertain that it was 4.0.3, I believe, and then found an exploit in exploit.db that was a Metasploit module, found another version that was in GitHub. We used that to upload a php-reverse-shell. We stabilized the shell, and then we started to poke around. We were able to get the user flag, figured out step 2 in enumeration. After history, we did sudo-l and found out that this person can run this monitor command in this specific directory. So what we did was we unzipped that directory, we copied bash over, renamed it monitor.shell, and did a sudo with the full literal path to monitor.shell, and it escalated us to root. So hopefully this walkthrough was helpful. Hopefully you found it useful. Hopefully you learned something. I will leave all the links in the description below. If you have any questions or comments, drop them below and I'll be happy to have a chat with you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.